In Dungeons & Dragons, there's a mountain of rings with a wide range of effects. So in this video, we'll be breaking down the most powerful rings in 5e. Starting off at number 10, we have the Ring of Temporal Salvation. This ring is from the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount and is a rare ring which requires attunement. And what it does is, if you die while wearing it, you vanish and reappear into an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the space you left, or the nearest unoccupied space if you were surrounded. When you return, you have hit points equal to 3d6 plus your Constitution modifier, and here's the kicker. If your hit point maximum is lower than the number of hit points you regain with this ring, then your maximum hit points rise to it. So, if you get this at low levels, you can actually increase your maximum hit points with this ring. And there are very few items that can let you increase your maximum hit points permanently. The other one being the Manual of Bodily Health, which increases your Constitution score by 2 and is very rare, rather than this, which is just a normal rare. It also has a secondary effect where when it activates, you lose 1 level of exhaustion. Now, the issue with this ring is that it only works at low levels. 3d6 plus Con Mod is only really a maximum health increase at levels 1 and 2. Also, once it's used, it turns to dust, so it's a single-use item. But still, although the maximum health increase is only useful at low levels, the ability to come back to life after dropping to 0 hit points is useful at any level. But for the effect alone, it might not be worth the attunement slot. Still, as it is one of only 2 items that can increase your maximum HP, one of only a select few items that can reduce exhaustion, and only at rare quality it also brings you back up when you would be knocked unconscious, it deserves a spot on this list, if only at the bottom of it. And at number 9, we have the Ring of Spell Turning. This is a legendary ring that requires attunement, and what it does is, while wearing this ring, you get advantage on saving throws against spells that target only you. So you would have advantage on something like Sacred Flame, which only targets you, but not something like Fireball, which hits an area. Also, if this spell is below 7th level, and you roll a natural 20 on your save, you reflect the spell, sending it back at the caster using all of the same stats for the spell as if it was cast from you. Now, why is this ring at such a low spot despite its high rarity? Well, it gives you almost magic resistance, but not quite, as traditional magic resistance gives you advantage in saving throws versus all spells and magical effects, whereas this ring limits you to only single target spells. Additionally, the spell Reflect is really powerful when it goes off, but you only have a 5% chance to proc the effect, and you don't really make spell saves as often in a game, even less so single target spell saves. So it's okay, but given how rare the spell turning will actually happen, and how limited the magical resistance is, it only takes number 9 spot on this list. And at number 8, we have Ring of Regeneration. This is a very rare ring which requires attunement, and what it does is, once every 10 minutes, you regain 1d6 hit points as long as you have at least 1 hit point. This is just a passive regeneration effect, so as long as you have some time between fights, you can go into every fight at maximum hit points. This is really good because according to the designers of 5th edition, the average adventuring day consists of 6 to 8 combat encounters. And to get through that without wasting resources, this would be an excellent item as it saves the spell slots of your healers while maintaining your maximum hit points. It also has a secondary effect, which, while good, will likely come up much less often. And that is, if you lose a body part like a finger, arm, or leg, the ring causes the missing part to regrow and return to full functionality after 1d6 plus 1 days, as long as you have at least 1 hit point for the full duration. The issue with this secondary effect is that most tables that I've heard of don't run dismemberments, possibly because, aside from the Vorpal Blade, which beheads its target, the Sword of Sharpness is the only weapon which talks about lopping off limbs. However, within its description it says that the effect of such loss is determined by the GM, so all lopping off of limbs is basically homebrew. As for the downsides of the first effect, it's that you only regain 1d6 every 10 minutes. So at level 15, a barbarian would have well over 150 hit points. So to get back to full HP, you might need to roll d6 upwards of 40 times, which would take over 6 hours. At which point you might as well just take a long rest and regain all your HP that way. Still, passive regeneration is a nice effect to have to keep you topped off, and while extremely situational, the ability to regrow lost limbs could be helpful, so this ring takes a lower spot on this list. And at number 7, we have the Ring of Invisibility. This is a legendary ring which requires attunement, and what it does is pretty self-explanatory. While wearing this ring, you can use your action to turn invisible. Anything you're wearing or carrying also becomes invisible, and you remain invisible until you take off the ring, or until you attack, cast a spell, or use a bonus action to become visible again. With this item, you have almost unlimited invisibility, and I say almost because, while there is no duration to the invisibility, it is still normal invisibility and not greater invisibility. You see, the invisibility spell requires concentration and lasts for up to 1 hour, but ends when you attack or cast a spell, while the invisibility effect from the spell Greater Invisibility only lasts for 1 minute. It does not deactivate when you attack or cast a spell, only if the concentration is interrupted or if you enter an anti-magic field. So, Greater Invisibility is a shortened combat-oriented version of invisibility, while normal invisibility is more used for sneaking around and such. Still, having unlimited invisibility is amazing. Unlike with a spell, you don't have to worry about time constraints or concentration, and in a vast majority of games there's at least some point where players want to sneak in somewhere, be it a castle, the dungeon, a hag's house, or whatever, and having invisibility makes doing that much easier. The only real potential downside is that this is a legendary item. Legendary items are balanced for tier 4 play, which is levels 17 to 20, and threats you are up against at those levels often have true sight. You might be surprised this item isn't higher on this list, but that's mainly because its uses in combat are not as strong as its out of combat ones, and there are a lot of very strong rings. And at number 6, we have the Ring of Protection. This is a rare ring which requires attunement and is by far the simplest item on this list, as what it does is give you a +1 bonus to your AC in all of your saving throws. This is an excellent defensive magic item which helps you get hit less thanks to the AC buff, and makes all of your saves just a little bit easier as there aren't too many items which give a blanket AC and saving throw buff like this one does. In fact, a straight increase to either of those things is very hard to come by, so it's real easy to look over just how powerful this ring is until you look into trying to increase your AC and saves in other ways. Especially since the increase seems so minor at only a +1. If you want to learn more about it, check out the video on defensive magic items, but suffice to say, this is an excellent defensive ring if you can get your hands on it. And at number 5, we have the Ring of Evasion. This is a rare ring which requires attunement, and what it does is let you use a reaction to succeed on a dexterity saving throw that you otherwise would have failed. This effect is not unlimited, however, as the ring has 3 charges, and using its effect requires 1 of its charges, and it regains 1d3 expended charges daily at dawn. Now, while the Ring of Spell Turning does not have a finite number of charges like the Ring of Evasion, the Ring of Evasion lets you choose any dex save, not just ones from single target spells. It also turns failure into success, where the Ring of Spell Turning only has a chance to do that, as advantage just gives you better odds, but is not a get out of jail free card. When it comes to big damage spells, most of them require dex saves, and while this doesn't help you against mental magics which control you, as all of those are wisdom, intelligence, or charisma saves, it helps you not take damage, which will keep you alive longer. And only the rare rarity, this could be seen as early as tier 2 play, which starts at level 5, which means you could realistically see this item in a game, whereas some of the other items in this list might be a little bit more unrealistic. And at number 4, we have the Ring of Elemental Command, specifically the Ring of Air Elemental Command. This is a legendary item which requires attunement and has a number of effects. To start us off, while wearing this ring you have advantage on attack rolls against elementals from the elemental plane of air, and they have disadvantage on attack rolls against you. Additionally, when you fall you descend at 60 feet per round, take no fall damage, and can speak and understand Aran, which is the air elemental's language. The ring has 5 charges and regains 1d4 plus 1 expended charges daily at dawn, and you can spend 2 charges to cast the Dominate Monster spell on an air elemental, and this will come in handy as it is only after you kill an air elemental while attuned to this ring that it really becomes fantastic. Because once you've killed an air elemental, you gain resistance to lightning damage, you can cast 3 different spells, Chain Lightning for 3 charges, Gust of Wind for 2 charges, and Wind Wall for 1 charge. These spells aren't the greatest, however, the last effect you get after killing an air elemental is a flying speed equal to your walking speed plus you can hover. Getting a hover speed is rare in 5e, and is a specific subtype of flight where you don't plummet if an effect would give you the prone condition while you're flying. This might not concern you too much, as this ring also gives you the slow fall effect, but even if you don't take damage from falling, there could be effects on the ground that you just don't want to fall into, like lava pits or an acid lake, or the jaws of a hungry Tarrasque. Still, the best part of this ring is the fly speed it gives you. While it's only equal to your walking speed, it is unlimited and always on. The other magic items that give you this effect are the winged boots, and they have a maximum of 4 hours of flying. And while this is probably sufficient for combat fights, more is better than less. Also, the ring comes with all the other effects, like the spells and language and the resistance, all of which the boots don't have. The downside of the ring is 2 things. First, it's a legendary rarity, so the likelihood that you'll find one is small. And second, to unlock its full power, you need to find and kill an air elemental. And while the killing part might not be too difficult as it's only a CR5 monster, the finding it could be difficult. Then again, you maybe have a druid or a wizard who can summon one with your Conjure Elemental spell, in which case that might not be a problem at all. All the rings of elemental command are okay. The air version stands out mostly due to just how powerful flight is on a whole, with the rest of the options being icing on the cake. And at number 3, we have the Ring of Spell Storing. This is a rare quality ring which requires attunement and basically gives you more uses of your spells. The ring can hold 5 levels worth of spells at a time, so that could be 5 first level spells or 1 5th level spell. In my top 10 defensive magic items video, I talk about how you can use this ring in a defensive way by giving it to your frontline fighter or barbarian with cast of shield and absorb elements inside of it to help them out. Go check out the video if you want to learn more about the defensive side of this item. But it can also be used offensively. Throw in a fireball with heat metal or spike growth, or just a single animate objects. When given to a spellcaster, the possibilities are nearly infinite, though I suppose you could still give it to your marshals and just load it with offensive spells too. However you decide to use it, despite only being rare quality, it takes the 3rd spot on this list for just how useful giving anyone access to 5 levels worth of spells is. And at number 2, we have the Ring of 3 Wishes. This is a legendary quality ring which requires attunement, and much like the Ring of Protection, its description is fairly simple. It has 3 charges and you can spend 1 charge to cast the Wish spell. Unlike the Ring of Protection, what this entails could be almost anything, as it's the Wish spell. The Wish spell can do anything your heart desires, although your DM can decide to Monkey's Paw unless you use it in a very specific way. The Monkey's Paw refers to a short horror story about an item that grants wishes, but in the most horrible way possible. In D&D, this most often takes the form of your DM deciding on a percentage chance that the wish should work, then rolling a d100, and if it rolls below the percentage chance, the wish is granted, and if it rolls above the percentage chance, then nothing happens. However, that's just how I do it, and there's no real strict rules, so your DM can do whatever they want. Some examples for what the wish spell can accomplish reliably are 1 object up to 25,000 gold pieces in value that isn't a magic item and is no more than 300 feet in any dimension. Give a full hell up to 20 other creatures, while ending all effects on them as if they were affected by the Greater Restoration spell. Grant 10 creatures resistance to any single type of damage forever. Grant 10 creatures immunity to a single spell or magical effect for 8 hours, such as making the group immune to a Lich's life drain. Undo a single recent event by forcing a reroll of any roll made within the last round, including your last turn, potentially turning a miss into a hit or your friend's failed save that killed them into a success. The forced reroll can be made with advantage or disadvantage, and you can choose if you want the original roll or the reroll to be canon. The Wish spell can also be used to cast any spell of 8th level or lower, and when you use it in this way, the spell does not require the components that it would traditionally cost. For instance, the Simulacrum spell, but instead of taking 12 hours and 1500 gold to cast, it's just 1 action when used with Wish and has no gold cost. The biggest issue with the Wish spell, rather than the Monkey Paw, is that if you use it for anything other than duplicating a spell, the stress of casting it means until you take a long rest, you suffer 1d10 necrotic damage every time you attempt to cast a spell. This damage cannot be reduced or prevented in any way. Also, your strength score drops to 3 if it isn't 3 or lower already, and this lasts for 2d4 days, but for every day that you spend resting or doing light activity, your remaining recovery time reduces by 2 days rather than 1. Last and most potentially disruptive is that you have a 33% chance to never be able to cast the spell ever again. For a spellcaster who took the Wish spell while leveling up, this could be a big blow, but for a martial or half-caster who could never get Wish normally, this wouldn't be all that bad. And since casting a spell through item counts as you using it yourself, you're probably better off handing the ring to one of your non-spellcasters for the unconventional wishes. There is a unique interaction with this item specifically, where if you're a sorcerer with the twin spell metamagic option, you can create a near infinite amount of simulacrums through rules as written. First you use Wish to cast simulacrum targeting yourself, and then you twin it. Now there are 3 of you and all 3 of you have your spell slots. Now you give the ring to one of the 2 simulacrums and have them use it since it doesn't require attunement. Then use the ring to cast Wish and twin out 2 more simulacrums. Now you have 5 simulacrums all with their 9th level spell slots intact. And from there, you can spiral out of control with using Wish to cast twin simulacrums over and over again. This is a very niche interaction, as it only works with a 17th or higher sorcerer who has taken the Wish spell, simulacrum, the twin spell metamagic, and it has this ring, but it still does work as rules as written. The downside of this ring for players is that it only has 3 charges, and they never come back. But while a downside for players, this is an upside for the DM, as they don't have to worry about infinite wishes unless there's a sorcerer in the party. This ring can also be given to players with all 3 charges unused, or with only 1 charge remaining to lower its power level by a little bit, as players gaining access to the Wish spell can kind of ruin games if you're not careful. And at number 1, we have Ring of Winter. This ring is from the Tomb of Annihilation and is the only artifact quality ring in 5th edition. It also has a whole bunch of effects. For starters, the ring has non-detection so that its wearer can't be targeted with divination or perceived through magical scrying sensors. While wearing this ring, you stop aging, and it protects its wearer from magical or supernatural aging effects like the ghost's horrifying visage. You also get immunity to cold damage and don't suffer any effects of extreme cold. It also has 12 charges, all of which are regained daily at dawn and can be used to cast a variety of spells. For 1 charge, you can cast Sleet Storm or Spike Growth. For 2 charges, you cast Wall of Ice, Bigsby's Hand, which will be immune to cold damage and deal bludgeoning damage instead of force with its fist attack, Ice Storm, and Cone of Cold. And for 3 charges, it can cast Flesh to Stone, but it turns the target into ice instead of stone, and Autolux's Freezing Sphere. You can also spend 1 charge to target a point within 300 feet of you and lower its temperature to a minimum of negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. This affects a 120-foot radius, and the temperatures drop at a rate of 20 degrees per minute. And the effect is permanent unless you spend an action with the ring to cancel it, at which point the temperature just starts increasing again at the rate of 10 degrees per minute. You can also spend 2 charges to create an ice object which cannot have any moving parts and must be able to fit within a 10-foot cube. It has the durability of either metal or stone of your choice. You can also spend 4 charges to create an animated ice creature, which must be modeled after a beast of CR2 or lower. This ice beast has the same statistics as the beast you base it on, but with some extra stuff. It's vulnerable to fire damage, immune to cold and poison damage, and has immunity to the Charm, Frighten, Paralyzed, Petrified, and Poison condition, as well as immunity to exhaustion. The ice creature obeys the commands of its creator, and both the object and the creature, when created, appear in an unoccupied space within 60 feet of you, and they both also melt into a pool of normal water after 24 hours, or when it drops to 0 hit points. In extreme heat, it loses 5 HP per minute as it melts, and you can determine the hit points for an inanimate object with this if it becomes necessary. There is some flavor properties where frost giants believe it can freeze the whole world, and Jin said that it could summon and control white dragons. There's also rumors of an evil being whose will can't be broken by the ring can gain more powers from it. However, none of these are actual written effects, and they're more plot hooks for the DM to use. And this brings us to the downside of the ring. The ring is chaotic evil and will try to take control of any creature who wears it. This results in a contest where the ring bearer must make a charisma saving throw DC 12 plus the item's charisma modifier, which, as the ring has a 17 charisma, makes the save a DC 15. If the wielder fails the save, it's charmed for 1d12 hours, and while charmed, it must try and follow the item's command. Taking damage allows you to repeat the save, ending the effect on a success. And once the item uses this, it can't try to control the creature until the next dawn. The Ring of Winter, once it controls its wielder, seeks their doom, so it makes them lash out and cause undue harm to everyone and everything around it. This could be pretty devastating to either you when you attain the ring, or the party if they can't stop you. Either way, getting 6 uses of the Cone of Cold spell is really nice, and quite strong as it's one of the better 5th level AoE spells. Being a constitution save is not the best, but a 60-foot cone is quite big, and 8d8 cold damage is nothing to scoff at. This is more something that you use as a plot device and have on the final villain of a campaign. But while you may never get to wield it as a player, this is the most powerful ring in the game. Alright, and that's the video. There are a lot of rings in D&D, so do you think there's any other better rings that I might have missed? Or you have ideas for future videos just like this one? If so, I'd love to hear about them down in the comments.